Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. Today here on, what is it? Canada Day, July 1st. That's right. Happy birthday, Canada, for all my fellow Canucks in the Great White North. Hoorah! Here we are. And in a couple days, we'll be celebrating 4th of July for all you folks down in the below the 49th in the US of A. So, happy long weekend, regardless of which side of the border you are on here in North America. If it is your first time here, thank you for taking the time, and you're wondering, Tony, what is this thing, Star Trek New Worlds? It is a turn-based strategy game that we play here online with you today on Twitch, on Facebook Live, and YouTube, using the rule set of Federation and Empire as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau, and the magic of the map is populated by Vassal. If you're catching us on the replay, then thank you for joining us here. And if you are so inclined and you make your way through more than a couple minutes of this show, then please consider being like Dr. Death 43 and hitting that subscribe button just to follow along with us as we carry on weekly here on Saturdays at 11 o'clock, talking about what's new and and groove? No, that doesn't make any sense. What the latest and greatest things are in the world of Star Trek New World. Speaking of which, we're going to get right into the galactic news because, man, there is some exciting stuff going on this turn. Here we go. Galactic news. Fire in the web. A massive assault was launched by the ISC against Tholian space. Nearly a dozen bases and planets were destroyed in a lightning strike by over 100 ships of the ISC Navy. The entire northeast quadrant of Tholian space has been cut off from the home systems, and 2 worlds are now occupied by ISC ground forces. What will the Tholian response be to this unchecked aggression? Will they be able to stem the tide before the rest of their empire is in flames? Who knows? No Man's Land. The Klingon-Romulan War rages on as Klingon ships take the fight into enemy territory. Bases were assaulted, and 2 major battles took place in the space between Romulus and the border. There is a devastated zone between the 2 powers now where bases and trade routes have been entirely destroyed. The Romulans are mobilized for defense now, and pundits are asking if the Klingon assault can be blunted or if the capital is in danger of falling. We may not have to wait long for the answer. Strange visitors. Another temporal anomaly has made an appearance in ISC space. A ship that looks very much like an ISC heavy cruiser is rampaging through ISC space, wielding a fantastic new weapon that is years ahead of anything seen in the galaxy. Is this a harbinger of things to come? Or is this some alternative universe where the laws of physics allow these strange offensive systems? Okay, we'll ditch that voice. Resurgence! At the core of the galaxy, it seems that the Juggernauts are rebuilding their lost bases, left unmolested for years now. The Juggernaut construction nanoclouds have emerged to construct battle stations at their original locations. These same clouds have been seen at the edge of the galaxy on the far side of Gorn space, converting civilian freighters into warships. Are the Juggernauts merely going... Somehow I've transitioned to into an English accent. Are the Juggernauts merely going about their business peacefully? Or are they biding their time before bringing the mechanical doom upon us all? Only time will tell. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has been the Galactic News. Hoorah! All right. Well, exciting and delighting. Welcome, everybody. We've got Bill the Gorn in the house. Paul Williams with those little devilish ears. Del is here. And Paul, the evil Knievel, the focus of today's episode, is in the house. All right. Well, let's just get into the nitty-gritty about what exciting things have been happening on the map. Normally, we start off with going to the map and doing the EP and fleet cap calculations, but I'm going to jump right in to our title today, which is the ISC BLITZKRIEG. So let me go to this dynamic map right now. What you are seeing on the screen now is a depiction of all the sites, all the locations, all the battles that occurred in Tholian space. If you count that out, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 separate attacks on fixed base stations within Tholian space. And as you can see by the stacked nature of the counters on those various hexes, the ISC attacked with overwhelming force in every instance. That's right, the ISC are now fully in the fight. If they were, or if you were doubting whether the ISC were on the fence and waffling whether they were going to get into the deep water here with the Tholians, well, that doubt is now over. They have effectively cut off a huge swath of Tholian space, impacting their economy, which we will see here in a moment. And certainly, as you can see here with the degree and the scale of this attack, they have certainly declared outright conflict against the Tholians. This is, for all intents and purposes, the first test of the Tholian player in this game. This is the first pressure that's been applied in any substantive way. This is the one and only time that anyone has picked a fight intentionally with the Tholians. Now, let's not discount the Tholian player. The Tholian player is a sneaky, crafty veteran of this game. He has played many variations of this game prior to us coming to you live on the show. In fact, he GMs other games of this ilk in other iterations, but he is very well versed in the rules. He is sneaky, he is crafty, he is strategically sound. However, let's give credit where credit is due. There is only one faction in this game which has completely annihilated another player. There's only one faction in this game which has intentionally total death killed another player, has occupied and still occupies another player's capital. There is only one player and faction in this game who can truly claim to be a true veteran of taking out the other factions, and that is the ISC player, in combination and in alliance with their REMAN counterparts. The REMAN ISC Alliance, as you saw in the thumbnail for this show, they are on the warpath. They are the only player faction, I should say, two of them, who have attacked, taken out, and eliminated another player. And in fact, they did it not against one, but against two. They are the experience, they are the veterans at doing this in this game, and they have set their sights on the Tholians. It's a 2-on-1 battle at the very least, which, to be fair, considering the player in question might be sort of an equal fight, we shall see. But they are, I would say, for the Tholian player, don't discount or don't underestimate your opponent. And for the ISC and the Remans, of course, despite the fact that it's 2-on-1 and all the various benefits and advantages that you may have, don't, or shall I say, expect the unexpected, and don't discount the craftiness of this wild, strategically minded individual. It's going to be exciting, it's going to be delighting, and I'm going to be very interested to see how this all settles out. But without further ado, let's slide into the map and catch up with our EP and fleet cap numbers. Hoorah! All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to zoom in one hex here, and we can get into the numbers. All right, so let's start with EP and fleet cap. EP, the Carnivon are at 56 total cash. That's right, $56 per turn they are making. The Gorn, 20 above them at 76. The ISC, with their recent conquering, are now at 71. Very interesting. The Klingons below the ISC for, I believe, perhaps the first time in the game, but very interesting. The ISC are at 71. The Klingons are at 69.5. The war with the Romulans is certainly taking its toll. The Remans, now rulers of the roost economically, they are at 82.5 EP. The Romulans at 56, and the Tholians now at 79. So interesting to note that the Remans are number 1. Tholians are number 2, the Gorn number 3 on the economic ladder, followed by the ISC at the middle of the pack at number 4. The Klingons are at number 5, followed by or tied with the Carnarvon and the Romulans tied at the bottom rung. So very interesting to see that distribution of economies and how essentially those who have been at war for any length of time are at the bottom of the barrel. Who said, I mean, this is a war game, but when you're at war, it has a cost. And apparently, for example, the Klingons are paying it. All right, let's take a look at fleet cap because these numbers don't lie. All right, the Carnarvon have 122 total ships with a 510 attack factor, 638 defense. The Gorn have 165 ships with 514 attack, 739 defense. The ISC, 175 ships, 664 is their total attack factor, 832 defense. The Klingons dropping, are at 112 ships in their fleet, 394 their total attack factors, and 456 defense. The Remans, 180 ships in the field with 693 total attack factors, 761 defense. The Romulans, bumping up their numbers ever so slightly, they have 80 ships out and about with 273 total attack factors, 367 defense. Interesting to note here, look at the delta, or the difference between the 367 defense and their fleet cap, which is 472. That's over 100 points in difference, which is a lot of crippled ships. The Tholians are the biggest fleet in the game at 197 total hulls, 619 attack factors. They're creeping up there. 938 defense. Wow, that's a lot of ships. That is a lot of ships. All right, let's zoom in here as I switch my head to the other side of the map. Whoop. Let's zoom in here to the ISC assault into Tholian territory. So right off the bat, we can see, after seeing that little map with all the yellow icons and all the indications of where those battles were occurring, there's quite a void now here where all the bases were once. And looking at the supply, I'm going to pull up the Tholian supply. I've set it to 2, the minimum number, just so you can see the sort of visualization here. I'm going to anticipate or guess that the Tholians have at a very minimum 5 supply, possibly 6, but 5 supply. So if they have 5 supply, you can see that there is a gap between the Tholian, we'll call it the northern pocket, and the rest of their empire. Their closest supply node or point would be right here with this YDK. If we're assuming a 5 reach, it can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It can't draw supply through the hex where this fleet is, because this fleet, as with the supply rules, impedes the flow of supply around it unless there is a Tholian ship in an adjacent hex or in the hex to allow supply to go through. So there's no Tholian ships here, only ISC ships, and they are impeding the progress or the reach of supply around this wormhole. So this and this are both, well, hold on, 1, 2, 3. So, and this was a question that came up with the GM. Because this resource is in a hex that's adjacent to this fleet, does this fleet impede or prevent the Tholians from getting this resource point, or does it, or does it not? That decision from the GM side is, I think we're waiting to hear back on that. But my take on the rules would be that if the ships can impede the flow of supply in hexes adjacent to them, whether it's a starting point, destination, or somewhere along the way, it will impede the flow of supply. So therefore, if I was the GM in this case, I would say that 6th Fleet prevents, because there's no Tholian ships around it, prevents access to this resource by the Tholians. So let's assume that that's the case, just for S and Gs here. If that's the case, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these 2 are gone or unavailable. So it can reach this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this one, and can't reach this one. So there's 1, 2, 3. Is there a base there? No. Base here? No. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 EP that are in a isolated or partial supply grid. So what that means is that this little supply grid can use that, but it can't be funded to the main supply grid unless they use Orions to shuttle that through, and that'll be a 2-to-1 split, meaning that the if it's 8 EP, they'll only get to be able to use 4 of it, by example. So that's a very, it's the first time that we've seen in the Tholians case any kind of impedance or barrier or block to their supply, or really any sort of casualties that they've ever taken. And this was all done in one turn. In one turn, they have sliced off, cut off, and isolated the supply grid for the Tholians. And of course, in the process, let's just take away the ships for a sec, they have taken 2 planets. Why is that so important? Because now they have supply. The ships on those planets are in supply. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know what the supply is for the IC. Let's assume that it's 5. If it's 5, yeah, they can't reach New Kazintai, but they can reach this one. So this one is within their supply, which means they can strat move to this planet. That's exciting. They can strat move units to that planet. And if they have if they build a base at some point up here, then they'll be able to strat move, of course, up here as well. The ships that are currently based here, which is Lawfleet. Let's take a quick look at Lawfleet. And I think my requests have been appreciated to a certain degree. There's been a little consolidation of the various fleets here. So we can see Lawfleet has 2 M-class cruisers, 2 light commando cruisers, a DD, all these M's, a total of 8 frigates. Of course, 4 of them are crippled, 4 of them are not, a scout, and a prime team. So more than enough in this neck of the woods to cry havoc and destroy a whole ton of bases, which will be interesting. And then, of course, there's Justice Fleet here, which is a cruiser, 2 light cruisers, 5 frigates, and a crippled frigate. So that's more than enough to go take Rex or pop a couple more bases here. Like, there's a lot that could happen here, not to mention what's here on 5th and 6th Fleet, which let's pull up 5th. Woo! Look at that number. Wow. Okay, I see that was 5th. Let's pull up 6th. Oh my goodness. I'm running out of room. Let's just put it here. Okay, so 6th Fleet is 5 cruisers, 4 light cruisers, 17 frigates, 2 scouts, 3 of these commando cruisers, a couple crippled frigates, and a bunch of prime teams. Then on top of that, there's 5th Fleet, which is a dreadnought, important for its command factor. A bunch of Y command ships. So 4 of those, 4 cruisers, a tug, 15 YCLs, which are pretty decent ships, a bunch of YDDs, 6 of them, and then a bunch of cripples. We've got 8 of those crippled DDs, 6 crippled YCLs, and a commando light cruiser. So basically we have an M fleet and a Y fleet, and both of which are pretty significant. Very interesting to see that mix in the game. Wow. Okay. Wow. That's pretty impressive. Now, of course, all that being said, the Tholians are not going to take this sitting down. They have 2nd Fleet sitting right here. So when we last looked at 2nd Fleet, it was not small. Woo. Let's just move this down here so we can see what we're looking at. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we've got a CAM, and I don't know what the command factor is for a CAM. I'm going to assume it's 8. Then we've got a CM, which is sort of like their early cruiser hull. So we've got an 8-7, a 6-7. We've got a total of 34 destroyers. That's quite a few. Now, their destroyers are 4-5 ships, which are certainly good. That's better than the F5M. And they've got 34 of them. That's quite a few. Then they've got patrol craft, which are like their frigates, and they have 39 of them. 34 of those, 39 of the other, and then 2 scouts. So that's a lot of ships a lot of ships that they had there to be able to do what they want to do. Wow, that's going to be very, very interesting. But what do you think about this sudden attack? What do you think about this wave of assault from the ISC into Tholian space? Do you think that this is going to really call into question what's going on from the Tholian side? Are they going to have to pivot and really make an effort to try and push this out? Or do you think Second Fleet is big enough to be able to stop the ISC onslaught? Keeping in mind that the ISC and the Remans are allied. And so the Remans just up here can easily move their way down. Don't know what that's going to look like. But remember, of course, they just popped the ISC, that is, just popped the November wormhole. So let's just take a quick look at the November wormhole right here. Let's move my head over a little bit more. So we can see here, there's Third Fleet. Let's take a quick look at ISC Third Fleet. Probably not nothing. Okay, so 2 cruisers, a light cruiser, and a frigate. That's probably the fleet that went through and popped that base. There's also another cruiser, another cruiser, a commando cruiser, and 3 frigates in that hex as well. And there's a base being built in that vicinity as well. And of course, there are some massive Y fleets from the Remans on the other side of this wormhole as well, with Acropolis, Pacifica, and Athena fleet ready to pop whatever may be on the other side. So that's a pretty significant exercise, shall we say, in operations. And that was just in one turn. So I'll be very interested to see how this evolves going forward. Not to mention, as was mentioned in the Galactic News, you have the Juggernauts with their nanite swarms, which are represented by the convoy counter there, are moving out and building up new bases where they used to be before. They're reestablishing the border they once had. So very, very interesting. Yes, this will be a very interesting sort of development and resolution to this. Whew, exciting! I'm going to take a quick sip of coffee here. All right, let's take a moment and look at the Lyran Pocket. So Lyran Pocket, as a quick recap for those of you who have joined us for the first time, this is a focal point between 3 powers: the Remans in red, the Carnarvon in green, and the Gorn in white and red. So you can see here the Lyran, a former player faction that was balkanized or in our rule set. Once that player left, turned into a non-player faction, and so we have these three factions in a pivotal stance over top the Lyran Pocket. Triton Fleet, which is the Reman side, let's take a look at Reman. Triton Fleet is not a small fleet. This fleet is a combination of 10 maulers, 4 cruisers, a command cruiser from the Y era, another 4 Y cruisers, 8 destroyers, 10 we'll call them super frigates, and then 1 Y era frigate as well. So we have quite a few ships ready to roll in if that was the case, to pop perhaps this Lyran base and certainly assault the capital. We've also got Pegasus fleet here, which is another, where are we here? Pegasus. There we are, Pegasus fleet. So Pegasus fleet is 2 cruisers of the, shall we say, the improved variety, the the K7RM is like the equivalent to the D7. So it's a straight 7 ship. It is with 2 maulers, a total of 6 destroyers of the M era, and 9 K4Ms, which are their super frigate. And so we are ready to rock when it comes to the Remans on these 2 fleets on the border here. If they wanted to, they could certainly move in and attack the Lyran homeworld. Would they be successful? Possibly. We'll show you the Lyran capital here in a second. You can see here there are plenty of PGBs. 42. Oh my God. Wow. That's a lot of 33. What? 42. Man, my math is terrible. So it's a 3 attack, 3 defense ship. Why am I having trouble doing math here? Divided by 3. There we are. 14. Brain dead. So 14 PGBs plus a Y PGB. Then you've got 18 attack and defense factors worth of PGBs here, 6 of those, and then 2 of those there. YDKs on all of them. And then, of course, there's Home Fleet, which is defending. Here we are, Lyran Home Fleet. So Lyran Home Fleet is heavy dreadnought. These are all Y-era ships. Or no, they are not all Y-era ships. So heavy dreadnought, all command cruiser of the Y variety. 2 M-era cruisers, 2 light cruisers, M-era again. 4 destroyers, 6 frigates, and a Y-era commando destroyer. So they have not nothing, certainly, and it will be a bit of an assault to try and take the Lyran pocket if they so choose to do that, which will be very, very interesting. As we spoke about before, we've got Topaz and Emerald Fleet on the Carnarvon side. Topaz and Emerald. Where are you? Emerald. Here we are. Emerald Fleet. So we have essentially the M and Y era fleets. A Y era Hydrant Dreadnought from a previous alliance is commanding a total of 3 M era cruisers, 4 light cruisers, 12 frigates, and a scout with 2 prime teams. And then there's 2 light cruisers of the M variety, a Y light cruiser, and then 5 drone bombardment cruisers from the Y era. So all these ships that combined are certainly, I would say, a more of a defensive force based on the numbers, but certainly there's quite a few there. And then of course we've got ships in the back here, a couple a YDN, YCC, YCA, and of course the YDK. And then we've got frigates sort of in the back country here, providing escort. And, oh, that's interesting. A YBS was crippled. I wonder how that happened. Interesting. Let's take away the ships for a sec. So you see here, this YBS, this is the crippled side of a YBS. If I flip this, that's what it looks like when it's not crippled. And when I flip it, that's when it's crippled. You'll see that the EW is still in effect with that little diamond there. But when crippled, there's 2 things about it. 1, it can't repair anything. And 2, it will it'll take quite a bit to repair it. It'll take 4 EPs at a 1-to-1 to be able to repair that. And of course, it will only be able to be repaired by a tug, a tug or a number of, I think it's 3 total light transport theater shuttles, I should say, theater transports, light theater transports, LTTs. Interesting. And then of course we got the Gorn, and the Gorn are by far, big and nasty in this context. So let's take a look. Mobile and Hammer Fleet. Gorn. Okay, so the Gorn here have Hammer Fleet, which is 4 CAs, a light cruiser, 14 destroyers, and a scout. And then Mobile Fleet is another 4 cruisers, so it's 8 total. 5 light cruisers, so 6 total. 13 plus their 14 DDM, so 27. YDD, another scout, and a prime team. So they've got quite a few ships in the area. And I would say that their total fleet compot there is more than a match, or more than equivalent to, the Remans in this context. So very interesting to see how that's going to play out. Very, very interesting. Okay. All right, so we've got the Remans on the side, the Carnarvon in the top left corner, and then the Gorn in the bottom. No substantial change, and they're just kind of, it looks like they're all just kind of sitting on the fence waiting to jump in. Let's slide over and check out the rest of the Reman Empire. And you can see here that Rykon Fleet is getting ready to, looks like, assault the Borak faction, the little independent faction in the north of the map here. Let's take a quick look at this. Reman Rykon Fleet. So we've got a cruiser. Oh, wow, a K7EM. So this is a survey ship variant of the K7. You can see 6 attack, 7 defense. And then, of course, they've got 3 K5Ms, which are like my F5M. and K4M. So quite an interesting combination of ships there, ready to, I guess, roll in and do a little damage to the Borak faction. Let's take a look at the minor fleets. Or actually, no, it'll be Borak. There we are. Borak, second fleet. Maybe not. Borak. Am I missing something? Maybe it'll be in the minors. Minor. Win. Minor empires. No. Y'all have to excuse me. I can't find the Borak. That's a Borak faction. Second. Oh, there we are. Goodness gracious. Okay, so we've got a YD and a YCA, a crippled YCL, and then, of course, we've got a YDK with 3 SIDs worth of damage. It can only take 4 before getting crippled, so on the 4th SID, it will be crippled, and then that'll be sort of, that's all she wrote for the Borak. Whether Rykon will be enough to be able to do that, I don't know. Possibly, but certainly there's an effort to be able to walk in and eliminate the Borak faction. You can see the rest of the backfield here. The biggest constraint that the Remans have is based on some of their previous conflicts. They have a lack of bases. This is not an uncommon thing for folks that have had a fight or two. So there's a lack of distribution of bases every 2 hexes. You've got, if we take away the ships real quick, you can see the distribution of bases is a little spread out and scattered. And you can see here, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hexes. It's a little all over the place. But again, this is in part a consequence of some of the conflicts they've had and just the nature of the growth that the Remans have had over the course of the game. If they want to continue moving towards the center and or break through this sort of like this wall of fog of war, then some more bases in this area to be able to provide supply to get down there are probably one of those things that they'll need to do. Now, let's talk about our heroes of the turn, the ISC. They've got their own little folks up in the corner here. We have a Kzinti faction and a Hydran faction, both of which are very well decked out when it comes to their fleets. It looks like Integrity Fleet is on the alert, ready to get in there. Integrity Fleet is 1 CAM. So very obviously, that one ship is not going to launch an all-out assault against these guys, that is for sure. But as was mentioned in the Galactic News, you can see right here is that temporal anomaly. That is the cruiser from the future that's shown up with some special abilities, hence that little black circle there, to be able to come in and do some exciting stuff. This ship, what can it do? What will it do? Who knows? But it's going to move in and around this area until otherwise stopped. What'll be very interesting to see is if the ISC are, because of course they've got their hands full now with a full-on fight with the Tholians, it'll be interesting to see if they can divert enough resources to be able to destroy or possibly capture that ship. Because if they can capture it, of course, they can integrate it into their fleet. It'll be very interesting to see what they can do with that. Regardless of whether they destroy it or capture it, they'll get a bit of a tech boost, I imagine, from this particular ship. It'll be interesting to see what that is if we can at some point. As we go down here, we can see we've got Judgment Fleet. This is sitting here on the ISC capital. There's 10th Fleet and a bunch of... What is, let's take away the bases. Okay, that's the Whiskey Wormhole. Thank you. So the Whiskey Wormhole is the other side of that stack of ships that we were looking at right here. That's the launch point from where the ISC did their massive assault and took out as many bases as they did. And boy, did they take out more than a few bases. So that's the Whiskey Wormhole. We talked about the November Wormhole, which is down here. So we have 3rd Fleet, some other ships, and of course a base being built in close proximity. And then the only faction to fully occupy another player faction's capital and actually have taken them out as opposed to them leaving the game in some way, shape, or form. The ISC, currently sitting on the Hydran capital in XX26. You can see they have a couple of frigates and a scout there. Enforcement fleet looks like it's ready to potentially engage this bug. Let's take a look. What is in... Slides over here. Oh, too far. Enforcement fleet is a DN, YCA, a CAM, quite a few CLs. Oh, YCLs, excuse me, 4 of them, and 1 CLM, and then a bunch of frigates. So will that fleet be enough to be able to squash the tarantula bug? We shall have to wait and see. Apparently that bug is quite a nasty little thing, and for every point of damage they do to it, it only takes, 75% of the damage, and the fleet attacking takes 25% of the damage they inflicted, like splash damage. It's going to be very interesting to see how that works out. All right, let's take a look at the Carnivon quickly here. We can see that the Carnivon are stacking some ships on their homeworld. They've got 3 DNs, 2 frigates, an LCA, which is their sort of up-converted Y ships, another YFF, drone bombardment cruiser, 2 drone bombardment cruisers, and there we are. Okay, Wolfpack 1 and Diamond Fleet are in the bottom corner here. They were the ones that were dealing with that visitor from the future. You can also see they have their own Kzinti faction over in the corner here. Everyone's got their own little minor faction on the border. Very interesting to see there. So we've got that going on. Where I could swear there was a big fleet. Oh, yeah. This big fleet over here. So you can see here there's a Gorn DDM gift, it says there. There's a little label on top of it that says gift. So we have home fleet with on that wormhole. Let's take a Carnivon look at the home fleet. All right, we've got a DN. These are the M-era command cruisers at 8-9. You've got 6 cruisers, 2 light cruisers, 6 drone bombardment cruisers, 6 DDs, 15 frigates, and 2 scouts. So this is by no means a small fleet ready to defend this particular wormhole. And then, of course, you've got Vengeance, Home, and Ally fleet. Okay, let's take a look at this. The Gorn have Vengeance Fleet, which is a CAM, and 27 destroyers. Okay. They have Home Fleet. Well, we'll have to pull that up separately. Gorn Home Fleet. Okay, here we are. CAM light cruiser, another 5 destroyers. So with the, oh my God, 27. That's 32 destroyers and a scout. My goodness. And then Ally Fleet 7. What is that? Let's take a look. I'm sure that's their, like, Gorn Reserves? No. Named fleets? No. Oh, there we go. Anvil. Maybe that's what it's supposed to be. Anvil? Maybe. Anvil Fleet? It says Ally Fleet 7. Ally Fleet 7. What is that? Alliance Fleet 7, maybe? There we are. Okay, so Alliance Fleet 7 is, let's put that right here. This is their sort of museum fleet. They have a Gorn WBI. I'm assuming that's a W-era battle cruiser? No. Maybe it's an improved frigate. I'm not sure. But these are all 0 attacks. So this is their museum ships. They have a Federation YDD, a YFF for the Gorn, an improved W-era frigate, an improved battle cruiser, a ISC light cruiser, and a Lyran DD. These are all museum ships, I guess. This is why they have 0 attack and 0 defense. Interesting. Okay, because this is their museum planet. Got it. And then the 101st Battle Squadron from the Tholians, because the Tholians are still sitting there with the Battle Squadron. That is a CM. Whoops, hold on. There we are. That is a CM 4 DDMs and 4 patrol crafts. So not a large fleet, but just enough to be able to declare war against the Tholians if you attack the Gorn, that kind of thing. And then, of course, they've got a slight a small fleet guarding a wormhole right here that leads into the Balkans. Okay, interesting. So we talked about the Carnivon, their Olympus fleet or their Kazintis in the corner. We've got Wolfpack 1 and Diamond Fleet in the bottom here just for checking that out. We got Wolfpack 1 here. You can see there's a crippled frigate. It's a CA, CL, drone bombardment cruiser, and a scout along with a Diamond Fleet. Let's take a look at Carnivon Diamante. Diamante Fleet, which is as well a cruiser, 2 light cruisers, and 3 frigates. Interesting. Okay, so there's that going on there, and that's essentially what the Carnivon have going on, keeping things nice and quiet. If we slide over to the Gorn, let's look at the Balkans first. I'll move my head to the other side. So you can see up here in the Balkans, the Gorn are getting nice and settled, shall we say, after taking over residency in the former Federation / Klingon, now Gorn territory. We have a total of 2 CAs, 2 CLMs, and 6 DDMs sitting here in open space. We've got a bunch of Y ships taking over planets and so on. We have DDM. What's in the former Federation homeworld? Anything going on? Nope, just a bunch of captured planets for the Gorn. And then, of course, we've got Strike Fleet and Fifth Fleet here. Gorn named fleets. We've got Strike Fleet, which is this is their Y fleet, which is a DN, 2 YCCs, and a bunch of crippled ships. And then we have Gorn Fifth Fleet, which is a CA, CLM, 5 DDMs, and a scout. So not game-changing fleet numbers, but certainly if they were to combine all those ships, they could do some damage. That is for sure. And of course, the Tholians still have First Fleet just sitting there, guarding the doorway, shall we say. Tholian First Fleet is not small. 3 CAMs, a total of 15 DDMs, 30 PCs. Oh my God. 6 CMs and 2 scouts. So that's not a small fleet. The question is, this will be very interesting to watch. What will they do with First Fleet with the assault that the ISC have launched? Are they going to like I would think it would somewhat make sense they redeploy First Fleet in a significant way. Because what is First Fleet really doing there? It's just sitting there plugging a hole that they don't need to plug at this point because their allies, the Gorn, are sitting there doing the exact same thing. Are they going to leave that large concentration of ships just sitting there and let the IC run rampant and cause all this economic damage? Or are they going to redeploy their ships in such a way that they can defend, defeat, or otherwise deal with the IC? Of course, if they want to keep a fleet in reserve, First Fleet will be very good for that. But what are they going to do to stop the IC? Who knows? We'll have to see if the ISC just run rampant and destroy everything on the Tholian front. It'll be so interesting to watch. A couple things to note on the Tholian front here as we go back down to the Gorn. Notice the FRD. That is a fleet repair dock. It just allows added repair capacity for ships. In this case, in the home system. But they are slow-moving ships. Oh, there's 2 of them. Look at that. 2 fleet repair docks. Interesting. And they also have to be moved by a tug for any significant speed. They can be strap moved, though, I believe. Interesting. Okay. And then as we take away the ships, you can see that they are upgrading all the bases in and around their homeworld into BATS. You've got BSMs, like this one down here, being upgraded into a BATS, like this one here. And they're just upgrading all the YBSs into BSMs, which are M-era YBSs. Y-era base station. BSM is a middle-era base station. And then a BATS is a battle station in the M era. So you'll see that getting built up and evolved or improved there. Interesting. And then as we go down to the Gorn, you can see here that they've got quite a few crippled ships after dealing with the juggernaut threat in the corner of their space here. And then, of course, we've talked about the fleets that they have up in the Lyran pocket, the fleets that they have guarding the wormhole here, and, of course, the fleets that they have in the Balkans sort of governing that area. You'll notice there is from the Gorn perspective, there's sort of 3 centers of gravity in that respect to their forces, and that's essentially sort of the distribution as we go. Now, let's roll into the Romulans and the attacks that are going on here. So, a couple things of interesting to note. There were some major attacks that happened in this area right here, and I'm going to show you. We'll slide over to this screen real quick just to talk about supply in one of these instances. So we'll slide over here now. Okay, so this was a graphic that shared with me by the GM because there was a question about supply. So in this example, this is in the middle of the Romulan turn. So the Romulans move before the Klingons, and so you'll see the Klingon ships are where they are. The ships where you see the YFB right next to that T4, they had attacked Klingon ships in that hex, which are in Zulu 48, and ships had retreated out of that hex into Alpha Alpha 48. And then, of course, you can see that 7th Legion had moved some ships into that position. And so there was a question about how Emperor Fleet could be in supply. So there's 2 things. One, supply is calculated at 2 different times in the sequence of a turn. It's calculated at the very beginning of the turn, so before these red ships would have moved into those various hexes, there was a very clear line of supply to Emperor Fleet, and they would have had supply at the beginning of the turn regardless. The second piece is, at this point when the Expeditionary Fleet and a bunch of Romulan ships moved out to attack Emperor Fleet, I guess there was a question about whether it was in supply. Based on this, you can see that we talked about this at the very beginning when it came to the Tholians and the ISC. Ships, uncrippled ships that are adjacent or in a hex can obstruct supply through that hex. So, for example, the YFB and the 7th Legion could theoretically oppose or interrupt supply through this hex in Zulu 47, the number 2 there. However, if the enemy or the opposing faction has a ship in that adjacent hex or in the hex, then that ship allows supply to go through. So you can see here, there's the Southern Reserve Fleet, which is on the very edge, which is where the 0 is. That's where there is a supply point there. T4, or number 1, the supply can go through that hex. Because the T4 is, and there's other ships there, is uncrippled, it can allow supply to travel through Zulu 47. So there's through the number 2. And then, of course, 3, 4, and 5 are unobstructed, and there's supply going through there. So when the combat occurs, as was the case in Whiskey 48, where Emperor Fleet is, where the number 5 is, when that combat occurred and you calculate for the second time whether a ship is in supply, it is in supply, not only at the beginning of the turn, but here at the beginning of combat in that battle hex, because as you can see, the numbers show the path of supply to Emperor Fleet. So that just shows you, for example, where some ships were in the middle of the Romulan turn as things were happening. But let's go back to the map and we'll see where things are now. All right. So as you can see here, we've got Southern Reserve Fleet and a tug. There's also a base under construction here. It's not depicted on the map, but there's a couple little typos that I'm sure will get corrected. There is a base under construction in Bravo 47. You have ships in Zulu 48 here. You've got Emperor Fleet, a crippled tug because those dirty Romulans used one of their prime teams to do a sabotage mission on my tug. Dirty Romulans. And so that tug was crippled. Then we got a T4, which is a wire tug as well, and then Emperor Fleet. So there were some big battles that occurred with a fleet of ships here in 3rd Legion that went and attacked Zulu 48. Those ships retreated, and a bunch of ships were destroyed. Zulu 48 had, 3rd Legion was then attacked. Let me try that again. Ships were attacked in Zulu 48. They retreated. Some were destroyed. And then they also attacked my Emperor Fleet. excuse me, that was in Whiskey 48. That was a big battle, and as a result, a lot of Romulan ships were crippled. I'll show you sort of the aftermath of what's going on here. So we've got 4th Legion, which is apparently just a bunch of prime teams. We've got Home Fleet, Romulan Home Fleet. You can see there's quite a few crippled ships there. And we've got Expeditionary Fleet, Romulan Expeditionary Fleet. All right. So in all the ships that are in that hex, you can see that they have all their King Eagles are crippled. Their Queen Eagles, all of them are crippled. Their 2 Maulers are crippled. They have only 2 Battlehawks that are not crippled. And then they have a bunch of scout ships that are uncrippled. Essentially, the biggest ships that they have that are not crippled are the dreadnoughts that they have, the VUL, Vulture M's. They've got 4 of them, and those are the sort of the only ships that are really holding things back. Whereas Emperor Fleet on the Klingon side, also heavily crippled. I'll show you here. Emperor Fleet, boom. So by contrast, Emperor Fleet is also beaten up in a big way. You can see there's basically everything is crippled here except for a couple D7Cs, a tug, a battle tug, and 2 C6s with a couple scouts sort of in the background. So very significant ships have been damaged in the initial assault and then subsequent sort of falling back battles as things have occurred. However, the big thing here is the ability to repair and get ships back on the line. Obviously, the Romulans have the advantage in this case because they have, for example, here in their capital system, you see 2 YDKs, and this YDK will be finished shortly. So they'll have the ability to repair ships and get them back on the line. However, Romulan ships, as we've talked about before, all of these ships cost at a minimum 2 points of repair per ship. For example, the Battlehawk cripples to a 3, uncrippled is a 5 defense, which means there's 2 points of repair to get it back up and running. 2 points of repair of the 8 that a YDK can provide, which means 1 YDK can only ever repair 4 Battlehawks. Whereas a King Eagle, which is this ship right here by example, takes 4 points of repair to repair it. You can only ever, at a YDK, repair a total of 2 King Eagles. So what does this mean? This just means that it takes a lot to repair these ships. And luckily, ships repaired at a YDK like that are 2 to 1 as far as 2 points of repair for every 1 EP spent. So you spend, or you repair 8 points of damage, you spend 4 EP to do that. So that's the capacity to repair is on the side. The advantage of that is on the side of the Romulans because they have it. But the cost is not to their advantage. Whereas the Klingons don't have currently repair in the sort of front section of the front-loaded or forward positioned. We don't have repair capacity up there. However, our ships are easier to repair, and at a 1-point repair for frigates and destroyers, they can quickly get back up on the front line. So that's an important thing to note. So we've got, of course, Emperor Fleet, that big fleet that's sitting there big fleet that's sitting there. And then, of course, we've got Southern Reserve here, which is, we'll show you here, Southern Reserve. This is not a small fleet. Southern Reserve is 3 F5s, 3 E4Ms, 2 E4S Scouts, 2 F5Cs, a D7 TGAM with 2 battle pods, and another TGAM with 2 prime teams. So this combined, for example, with Emperor Fleet would be more than a match for anything else that would come out and say hello, so to speak. And of course, we got some other ships back here able to sort of get into the fray. 7th Legion, which is the sort of some ships that have moved their way down into this area. Let's take a look at Romulan 7th Legion. Okay, so 7th Legion is a War Eagle and a early era snipe, and of course they've got another snipe and a YFAL. So not a lot of ships there as far as strength of units, But the big thing is that falcon. Those falcons are maulers, and they cause a lot of pain and suffering, shall we say. Don't like them. Don't like them at all. All right, so that's what's going on there between the Klingons and the Romulans. Also to note that the Klingons took this opportunity to pop some bases. There was a base here in Zulu 51 that was destroyed, a base here in Sierra 50 that was destroyed, and unfortunately, due to the initial attack from in Whiskey 48, the ships that were initially assigned to go attack this YBS were not sufficient because a lot of them were crippled. They were insufficient to be able to actually destroy this base, so they just crippled it, which is still good, but the crippled base is going to be a little harder to destroy going forward. But as you can see here, based on the battle that we had in Whiskey 48, all those cripples are obviously at the homeworld, and he scattered a bunch of the cripples around to try and repair them at the surrounding bases. Both of these bases had battle hawks, crippled battle hawks that they were trying to repair as well, and of course, that's what's going on there. So, a lot of business going on in this zone, this area right here. It's getting exciting. All right, let's go to the top of the map. Here you can see there's also quite a stack of cripples on this YDK that is damaged with 3 SIDS, and it would seem that the Romulans are trying to move everything they can to be able to support this little base here and prevent it from being destroyed, which is grand, I suppose. Great for you guys to keep trying that. And the Klingons just keep beating on these ships as they keep trying to get their way into Klingon space. I'm sure that they will be able to eventually do something. The question is, how long will it take, and what other ships will the Klingons be able to put in that area? We'll see, because if and when we break through, there'll be nothing in the backyard here to prevent us from running rampant. Of course, the same could be said if the Romulans break through on the Klingon side. We'll just have to see. So between the Romulans and the Klingons and the war that keeps happening, the ISC breaking through and making big gains, all sorts of exciting things going on. All right, guys. Well, hopefully that has been a valuable and quick recap for you. It's been an eventful turn with a lot of exciting battles occurring. This is a long weekend for all of us here, so both in Canada, for Canada Day today, and for all of you in the United States, the 4th of July weekend on the other side of the weekend. So it's going to be an exciting couple of days regardless. I hope you and your families are having a great time enjoying this, celebrating our various countries, and have fun, be young, and do fun things. We'll be potentially looking to do maybe something else over the course of the weekend. We'll see. But again, it's Canada Day here, so I'm going to punch out and do some Canada Day type things this side of the border. But I hope you have a wonderful good time. If you have had the chance to follow up to this point, now almost an hour into the show, then please feel free to dethrone Dr. Death as our latest subscriber. Hit that button, perhaps the thumbs up, and let us know that you like what we're doing here. The next couple of turns are going to be interesting in this game for sure, as things really shift around for the Tholians and the ISC. That's going to be really exciting to watch. Will the Klingons fold under the pressure of the Romulans, or will the Romulans collapse, implode, you might say, with all the pressure being applied to them from the Klingon front? Who knows? There's so many interesting options of how this is going to go forward. Looking forward to seeing you next time on this show, next Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. Feel free to see you soon. Bye for now.